So it's show me the I think we should be live now, preparing live stream. So we'll start, Sohini, if that's okay. Right. So good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you for this She Inspires Global Conversation series to celebrate International Women's Day 2025. And it is indeed a privilege to welcome all of you here to the 10 Minutes Conversations. And International Women's Day has always been a moment to celebrate how far we have come and the milestones achieved and the barriers that are broken. But it's also a reminder how much more work needs to be done. And the theme for this year is Accelerate Action. And this challenges us, all of us, as individuals, as organizations, and as communities, to go beyond conversations and to take some steps which are meaningful and create a change. It's really about turning intention into impact. And for us at She Inspires, the theme couldn't be closer to our heart. Over the past decade, She Inspires has grown from a local celebration to a global platform, connecting and uplifting women from all walks of life, from community champions to global leaders. We have recognized thousands of women, shared their powerful stories, and created a supportive space where women don't just get awards, they gain a community, a platform, and a voice that travels far beyond. And one thing that we are very particularly fond and very proud of is our initiative, Empower 50K Girls. So last year, we celebrated 10 years of She Inspires. And on the back of it, it's our personal commitment to reach 50,000 women and girls. And we started in India last year, and we have reached about 2,500 girls so far. It's a long journey, but we'll get there with everybody's help and support. And of course, the vision is also to create more opportunities for women and cross-border collaborations. And at the heart of all this lies the power of conversations. Because when women and men come together, change happens. So first of all, a huge thank you to Sohini Roy. She's an amazing host, been part of She Inspires community for many, many years. She's a winner and she's a global ambassador. She's actually adopted the entire She Inspires community and she takes it beyond borders. So thank you very much, Sohini, for everything you do for She Inspires. And of course, a very, very huge thank you to the amazing panel that we have got today. We are very lucky to have you all. Thank you for your time and for sharing your insights. We have our previous winners here. Elizabeth is a previous winner. Dipti won last year. Satya won the year before. It's huge. And of course, Indru is our judge for many, many years now. He's a resident judge for Culture Champion. So it's very, very nice to have new people as well joining the community. Mr. Mathur, thank you so much for your time. And Mr. Sharma as well here. And of course, Lajo. So without further ado, I will now hand over to Sohini. Sohini, over to you and thank you. And before we start, we put together a little film last year, about 2-3 minutes. If you're okay and with your permission, may I show that film to the new people, Sohini?
Absolutely. Please go ahead. This is the time, the momentum, the moment in life. Give me this moment, this precious chance. I'll gather up my strength and make some sense at last.
Evening, everybody. It's lovely to have you all here. Each story we celebrate tonight is a beacon of inspiration for women across the UK and indeed all over the world.
Shine when all I've lived for.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very inspirational.
I know that Gulnaz has been doing very valuable work through her organization, She Inspires.
To look down. It's the mountain.
Today, we will have the whole world under one roof. Inspired individuals will always step forward to help those who need it.
Just been really following everything that She Inspires does and all of the advocacy programs, the charities that they do.
Over to you, Sohini.
Beautiful. Hello, all of you, and welcome on this forum. Thank you very much for being here with all your, taking off from all your work, from your busy schedules. And I would also like to say that at She Inspires, we celebrate women from all walks of life. And we believe that nobody needs to empower women. We come empowered. It's just that we hope and pray and work towards nobody throwing stones in the path of growth of women. She Inspires also creates a community of empowered women all over the world to come together and help each other grow and forever be on the path of empathy. So once again, thank you all for your time. And we would like you to introduce yourselves, please, how you want. And I would start with Satya. If you could just say a little bit about yourself to introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, hello panelists and hello Sohini. And well, I'm Satya Saran. I have been a journalist for a long time. And I have been with Femina, the women's magazine, for 26 years. And when I became editor, I realized that there was a responsibility this magazine carried because I took the torch from my earlier editor and I had to run with it and try and keep up with the changing Indian woman. She was changing so fast that one had to stay a step ahead to be able to help her, guide her. And I was myself learning on the job. But I think the lessons we learned and the lessons we shared were that, as Sohini, you just said, you can't keep a good woman down, become empowered. And the way to let that power grow and to realize our full potential is to enlist everyone who's around, whether it's a husband or a father or a brother or a sister or a mother-in-law, or a colleague, and say, let's walk together, let's do this together, and you help me and I help you, and we go much further than we would have gone. I think this is the lesson that I learned and which I communicated to my readers. And I think that made a big difference. And I do write a gender column now for the Hindu, where I try and continue what I was doing. And I think the joy of knowing that a lot of lives were impacted positively by what we did as a magazine, by reaching out to them and telling them there's no shame, no guilt in being a working mother, there's no guilt in being a working wife, or not making tea for your husband when he comes home, or to teach him how to make tea for you when you come home. You know, that's I mean, these are challenges that women face and which are great fun to surmount. So, but I think when I listen to women telling me how we impacted their lives, I think that's the richest reward any journalist can get. And I'm very, very happy that I got this chance to do what I did.
Thank you, Satya. That's amazing. We'll come back to you with the panel questions so you can talk about some of the amazing stories you've told me before. Truly revolutionary what you told me yesterday. And while we're still in Bombay, the city that never sleeps, Satish, would you please introduce yourself? Satish has been running Maharashtra as the DG Police, and we would love to have his perspectives today on the panel.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Satish Mathur. I retired as DG Maharashtra in 2018. But the significant thing which I feel is that I joined in 81, so about 39 years of working with the force for law enforcement. I have seen the kind of changes which have come up in terms of attitude towards women, induction of women into our police force. Maharashtra being one of the pioneering states is always upheld by the other units in the country, and as well as it's a beacon for some of the institutions in the world of how we behave and how we handle things. So we have seen the nitty-gritty, and I have seen the kind of changes which have taken place up to 2018 as a hands-on person, and now we observe through various friends and journalists and through media. So, well, yes, I'm thankful for including me here on this panel, and I'm sure we'll have a lovely discussion to follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Satish. We'll come back to you with the panel questions in a bit. Lajwadi, would you please tell us about yourself?
Okay, hi. I'm Lajo, all right, Lajwanti, 72 years old, a grandma, you know, mom-in-law. But I was raised with at least 6 brothers and umpteens of male cousins. And you know, there was no difference in the way we were raised. We were raised to climb trees and hang out with each other and talk to each other and swap notes. And there was a curious kind of empathy that grew then. And that, I think, colored my life journey in a major way. My father himself, you know, he is my God. I mean, everything I know about life is because of him. But then, when I became a mother and I had 3 little girls, I knew how I would raise them. I would raise them to be fearless. I would raise them to be educated. I would raise them to have a taste of every culture and, you know, available to us, so that there would be a bond, a wonderful bond between them. Of course, you know, I became an accidental journalist, and I've been here in the UAE for the last 46 years. And before that in Bombay, you know, trying my hand out at Doordarshan and working with Dharmayug and other publications. Here in Dubai, I started working freelance with Khalij Times and Gulf News and International India and other magazines. It was a very interesting experience. I mean, some of the people that I've met here are extremely sophisticated and very, very well read, you know. it makes one, you know, I keep going to the Sultan Ali Owais Cultural Center to listen to the poetry, just to listen to the nuances. Because, you know, being a musician's daughter, I have to hear what I need to hear. And it sounded so beautiful. So, you know, my life here has been a mix of rediscovering the dignity of women right here in the UAE and raising my daughters to exercise their full potential, come through fully empowered and, you know, as educated and kind women. My main criterion with all my kids, everyone, is be kind. Nothing else, no more, no less. Okay, that's it.
Thank you so much, Lajadi. That was beautiful. Thank you. Next, I would love Mrityunjay to tell us something about your journey, because he's an entrepreneur and a very good author. I've just finished reading his book, and a very young politician, and we need more politicians like him. So Mrityunjay, do tell us about your journey a bit and introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be part of such a panel and to be discussing something which I'm very sure is close to everyone's heart. And all of us are very passionate about, I would say, equal rights. You do not need to give extra rights to anybody, just give them equal rights, and, you know, that the solution's done, is what I think. I wear multiple hats, as you said. I'm a politician, lately an author as well. I also happen to run a startup. I also happen to run a lot of social initiatives on the ground. And what I see and experience firsthand in terms of women facing the kind of challenges that they do face, those are very real, and it's not something of an academic discussion, but you see those differences and those challenges affecting them at every stage of their lives, in every way, in every appearance that they make, every outing that they go out to. And in certain cases, to the different strata of society when you go, the women specifically face, in certain cases, I say, discriminations from three ways or three layers of discrimination, which is, in certain cases, it is of caste. That combined, if they come from a poorer background, the discrimination of class, and the third is the discrimination of gender. So a triple discrimination or three layers of discrimination, actually, I would say, it kills any kind of opportunities that they may have had, or they would have, really wanted to work upon. I see that day in and day out, in all of these professions that I'm a part of. I see that in politics. I see that at the office which we run. In fact, I'll come into the details of it later in the discussion. I see that in the social initiative that we run. We teach mathematics to almost 200 kids at 5 centers in Ranchi. And almost half of these 200 kids, more than half of these 200 kids are women. And they come also from socio-economically weaker backgrounds. Most of these are tribal girls from very poor backgrounds. We teach them under tree sheds in their own small hamlets that they live in. And, we realize this every day, that a lot needs to be done in this specific area for half of our population to come to par with what we men have already. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrityunjay. We'll come to you for further questions soon. Lisbeth, who's been a winner with She Inspires, do tell us how it's made a difference for you, being associated with She Inspires and being a winner and having 2 awards and being a judge too. And do introduce yourself, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me for this panel. It's very beautiful. And I just want to start a place, because I come from Denmark. And when I first came to India, that's when I realized how women were treated differently. And I can't say this without having a shake in my body, because I remember one woman, she told me, my husband is my God and he can do with me whatever he wants to do. And he was hitting her every day. You know, that just killed something inside of me, and that made me wanted to do something. So I'm the founder of Little Big Help. I'm here in Calcutta right now. I arrived 14 years ago, planning to stay 3 days, and I'm still here. I don't live here all year. I'm just here a few months a year. But in Little Big Help, we empower women. We don't talk about what problems women have. We go out there and we give them skills training. We give them awareness. And just today, Suhini and I have been celebrated 250 women, also female team members. In Little Big Help, we have around 100 team members here in Calcutta, and 65% are women. So also there, we are very much focusing on women. And yeah, so this subject is very close to my heart. I hear stories so often that it's just heartbreaking. Today in my speech, I was telling about Jasmine, a woman who, when she was conceived and they realized it was a woman, the father wanted to kill her mom, you know, because he didn't want to have the girl child. The mom escaped, came to Calcutta, have been staying with the brother. When Jasmine came into our skill training to do patrician a year ago, she hardly couldn't talk, you know, so talk about having a voice. Talk about having the courage. Talk about having to say something, you know.
Yeah.
That's why we need to work. You know, these are the people who really needs us. And today, Jasmine was on stage. You know, the other day I gave her the diploma that she is now skilled patrician and she's ready to work. So yeah, I could go on. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisbeth, for this beautiful anecdote, part of Little Big Help. And we'll come back to you soon. Indro, would you please introduce yourself and do tell us a line about how it feels to be a judge on She Inspires and to be communicating with so many women from all over the world, hearing their stories.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm Indra Roy Chaudhary. It's an honor to be on this panel of esteemed people. And I'm a musician, composer, and teacher based here in New York. I teach at the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan here. And I also run a nonprofit, which is geared towards empowering artists. So every genre has its, unique set of challenges and barriers. And the genre I'm focused in on is the Indian classical genre. So we work on breaking some barriers for the artists who have dedicated their lives and time to this music, who are based here in New York, and we're taking on some initiatives to make that path more viable for them. So with that background, it was quite an honor to be on the panel of judges for She Inspires and hear all these stories from women from all walks of life, coming from all circumstances. And then you realize that, there are barriers and challenges that people face no matter what their circumstance in life is, whether you're coming from very humble background or very privileged background, you still face these challenges to go forward. And what these women have in common is they really always are looking to give back to the community. And that's such a strong driving force. And it's wonderful to see how that manifests itself in women from all sorts of backgrounds. And so I think, platforms like this, She Inspires, very important to be able to open up avenues for women to give back to the community, which is what many women that I've seen through this platform is what they're trying to achieve in their life. So it's been an honor to hear these stories and be a part of these panels.
Thank you very much, Indra. That was very impressive and from the heart. And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Next, I would ask Deepti, probably our youngest panelist here, to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm very excited and honored to be a part of this panel. I'm Deepti Savalka Modi. an engineer by education and a foodpreneur by profession. I'm the founder and director at gourmet design company Anvarak, which are both award-winning brands in the catering segment and in the Indian dessert segment. Through my companies, I've had an opportunity to empower some of the marginalized communities, artisans that have certain, abilities that have been handed down to them through generations and which were getting lost. And we empower these artisans to bring their talent into the mainstream by giving them the skills to do so and work in this environment. Over the years, I've had the privilege of working at very high octane parties and events, including some of the most talked about events, such as the Ambani wedding and others. For me, food is just not a meal, and it is something that I feel is more of an art, something that evokes emotions, and that is the kind of emotion that we try to set forth in the company as well. And of course, by empowering these artisans, we try to work with their families and empower those and support those families as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dipti. We are all very impressed with your story, and you were recently even invited to Vantara, I think,
Yes.
to cook up because the PM was visiting, so you were doing the meals there too a few days
So
ago.
we catered at the inauguration of Vantara, which is of course like an Ambani family initiative, and our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, was visiting and inaugurating that. So that was pretty exciting.
Thank you. You can tell us later what he wanted to eat. What were his food preferences?
Of course.
But we start the panel now. I would start with Satish because I've always been intrigued that, where optics are concerned, women in the police force for me would either mean Kiran Bedi, who's spoken about everywhere, or, a Bollywood actor, Kajol, who comes on Netflix in that police uniform. In West Bengal, I do not see much of OCs or women police. Maharashtra, of course, I saw many of them. So I wanted to ask you, why is it such a boys' club? And how can this disparity be corrected to some extent?
Well, initially, after we gained kind of independence and policing was controlled by our own people and not by the colonists, so to speak, the force was, the women in the police force were very few and meant primarily for just two duties. That is, one is to guard women prisoners or to escort them to the court for trial, and then some very basic security duties at the airports. So these were primarily the two functions, and hence the number itself was very limited. And in fact, quite strangely, not every police station even had women police constables at their disposal or in their roles. So if there was a woman prisoner, a wireless message would go out there to the headquarters that please send us two women constables to perform these guard duties, etc. So it was a very, very limited function. They were not expected to do anything else other than this. And hence, the intake itself was also very limited, and there was no policy towards the intake. It was like a very minuscule proportion of the force. This is the story of Maharashtra, and it is reflected majorly in most of the states, because Maharashtra was, compared to others, still better off. But even that itself was not good enough. And then some changes came up in the thought process, and women's complaints started to be highlighted by the media. And the courts also intervened, which said that if a woman is wronged or if she has some issues with the family and she wants to complain, or there's a sexual assault, a woman only should listen to her because she can tell all the details more freely. So some kind of there was a fashion, in fact, I feel, to have all women chowki or police beat, where women would be posted and they would be kind of looking after such issues. But it was more of a kind of a glossing over the whole thing. And subsequently, when the the police force in the states of India comprises of constabulary and then sub-inspectors who are recruited through an examination. Those are the younger lot, and they are the more they are supposed to be the sharper and the more hands-on guys in the system. Then women, the reservations came in for women in the MPSC, Maharashtra Public Service Commission, and likewise in all the other states, where women started coming in through the exam. Earlier, it was merely all those who would be available and would pass some physical tests would be kind of recruited. So that gave a little impetus to the presence of women at a cutting edge level. I mean, they were executive officers, as we call them, who were expected to, man the police station, detect crime, do all the normal functions which a male sub-inspector would be expected to do. And only then did the educated women come into the police force. Historically, from about independence to 1980, it was more or less women who could barely read or write who would be inducted into the force, 8th pass, and from very poor background. They would come into the force, and they were not given much of a significant role. But with the induction of direct sub-inspectors, a fresh kind of personnel came into the force, and they really helped to change the perception which the others had about the women in the police force. Then we laid down a policy, I remember around 1991 or 92, that 30% of the force would be comprising of women, policemen, sub-inspectors, and senior officers all put together. And that's when the real drive started to recruit women. Some physical standards were set, and some academic standards were also set up for the recruitment process. But I recall one very major thing that, the standards were a little warped, in the sense they wanted the women to, kind of pass some physical tests. But when we were on the ground, we would see that the women who came for the constabulary recruitment were from fairly impoverished families and backgrounds. So they won't be even able to complete the physical test because they had no strength and energy. So then we kind of stepped in and said that we need to dilute these standards a bit, and also we need to give them, so we would give nourishment to them before the day of the test with bananas, milk, oranges. That was the condition. They couldn't even complete the test. So if they don't complete the test, we can't induct them. Mm-hmm. So now a situation has reached over, let's say, between 1992 to today, where we have a fairly large representation of women in the state police forces. It's still far below the expected norm, which is 30%. And it is hovering around 10 to 12% in the developed states. And many states have much less than that. Having said that, the central police forces also play a major role in India, because the CRPF and the CISF, which you encounter when you go to the airport, the staff which does security checks for women who are boarding a flight, etc. They started coming in, and ultimately around 2000, we came up with the first concept of in CRPF. which is the real fighting force of the central government, the central agencies, and we raised what was a Mahila battalion. So a whole battalion of women were raised. They were able to provide them logistics support and all that kind of a thing. So it's still one of the most vibrant, and they do, if you look out on the Republic Day parade, you will see this battalion, select personnel from this battalion marching across as well. Now, what happens in the state for law and order agencies, police forces, is that everybody is liable for transfers. And that's where the problem comes up for women, because you can't, male officers, we transfer out of the city and they go from one town to the other of, let's say, Maharashtra or any other state. But for women officers to be moved around becomes a big issue because they are also supporting their family. If the male officer is transferred out, the woman is there to support the family. But if the woman is shifted, there is a huge issue with the looking after, because all said and done, whatever may be the rank of the woman, she still has to look after the household. We have rarely come across a situation when a household has been taken over by the men in the house, or even by we have heard very good stories of the mother-in-laws kind of taking over and telling the officer to go across to her place of posting. So this is one constraint for why women don't really want to join at an officer level, because they are liable for transfers and postings, and this can happen frequently, which can be very disturbing. And then they also by nature need to go on long leave, let's say maternity leave, etc. But which time there's a depletion in the force, people don't like it because you are losing hands. So there also, because now a large amount of paternity leave is kind of guaranteed, the issues which are there with this kind of situation when it arises hinders both things. A, the women coming into the force, and B, the leaders accepting women into the force. So there is a barrier on both sides. And until it's broken on both sides, it's going to be a tough situation. And now, of course, if you know the condition of police stations in India, they weren't very modern, they weren't very amenable for women to as a workplace, so that they could come, they could have changing facility, they would have had proper toilets. So we did a lot of work in trying to make these basic amenities at least available at various units. So all that has led to a little bit of improvement, I would say, at the state police level. And largely, it has changed the perception. So to an extent now that in big cities, routinely we have women officers who are in charge, is what you call OCs in West Bengal, or senior PI, let's say, in Maharashtra, who are in charge of the police station, and they command men as well. So that's when the real change comes in. They are not part of the workforce, they are the leaders, and sometimes they are leaders of an important police station. What we have noticed is that initially there is a lot of resistance in accepting a woman as the leader at the police station level. But we have also found that some of the women officers are very dedicated, very smart, and totally committed to the force and to the society as well. So they are able to make a mark, and kind of they had in the past demands that no, we want so and so officer. And I must say that people are also very scared of trying to tell them to do the wrong thing. Somehow or the other, they find it much easier to approach a male officer and kind of say, okay, do us an out of turn favor. But it's very difficult to land up and say this to a woman officer. So they have been more firm, more upright, more on a relative scale, more dedicated, I would say, which has really helped. Yet till a stage comes when we have perfection, near perfection at the logistics level, it will be very, very difficult for us to achieve that landmark of 30% or even have more effective officers. The idea is the percentage is just a number. But even if there are 20% and they do the job, that's great. That's good enough. The issues will not be there. But as of now, there is an issue in terms of their induction acceptance in the society as well. That my daughter or my sister is joining the police force is not a very acceptable thing in society itself. So there is a little high gap in this whole perception as well. But I must say that over the past 15, 20 years, the perceptions are changing. And unlike in the Air Force and the Navy, they have been given, they've been handed over the cockpit, which is a very much a change. Earlier, they were only on the ground as support staff in the defense services, especially in the Air Force and the Navy as well. Same year, we have to hand over the cockpit to them, which means that we may give them higher responsibilities. And we have found dereliction to be very, very less compared to the male officers. So that's a bright spot. But the women officers by themselves are less. So finding a good officer, that becomes that much more difficult. But now, the last bit is that even in the awards and the medals, etc., we do encourage women to be kind of highlighted and given various awards which a police officer can claim during his career. But so I would sum up like this, that there is a huge gap, but it's getting filled up. So how long will it take to completely reach the golden age? We cannot say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very honest and very optimistic also. Thanks a lot. My next question would be to Dipti. As we know, confidence in a man is leadership, and in a woman, it's often called bossy. Just as emotion in a man is authentic, and in a woman, it's overreacting. How do we dismantle these invisible biases? And have you gone through this? Since you're the boss of your company, the leader of your company, Dipti. So what happens there? How have you kind of navigated through these issues?
Thank you for the question. I think I can very much relate with what you just said. Because when I look at my own company or I look at the catering segment, I feel it's a very unorganized sector. And it's very much male dominated. For a woman to be a boss in that sort of a segment requires you to take on to wear different hats, to take on different roles. A lot of the times I find myself dealing with not only, the educated workforce, but also the labor workforce who are not skilled, very skilled. And I feel like depending on the kind of exposure that they have had, their acceptance of having a woman leader varies. So a lot of the times I have faced, I feel like it would be more acceptable for a male to be taking a lead, so I've had to work on it over time. And then also, women are expected to be leaders in certain fields, is what I've learned from my own experience. And in certain other fields, they're not very accepted. So if, for example, if you're an engineer and you make a sudden shift to the food business, at least I faced a lot of questioning as to, what experience do you have? And, there was a lot of talk about why are you moving from such an organized sector when you're so educated to an unorganized sector? So I feel like women are judged in different ways, depending on what they are doing. And of course, emotion in women sometimes is taken as weakness. If you're not emotional, you're labeled as being very bossy, and not empathetic. And if you're emotional, then they take it as a weakness. So somewhere I feel like there's a sort of a middle lane that you have to maintain, which I've learned through practical experience. And I think I still haven't perfected it. But yes, I can relate to it.
Thank you, Dipti. Good to know how you've gone through your experiences and your perspectives. My next question would be for Mrityunjay. Politics and literature have both shaped narratives, but in very different ways. Have you ever written something that you felt was more powerful than anything you could say in a political speech?
Have I written something like that, you say?
Sorry?
Did you ask, have I written something?
Have you written something which had a far more powerful impact than something you'd said in a political speech?
Uh, so, I don't know. So maybe difficult to assess the impact, but I would say, both of these fields have their own, sphere of influence and the ways in which it can shape and change what we have now. I think politics has very far-reaching consequences in terms of actually shaping policies, actually shaping the entire environment around us. In fact, I think one of the most, I would say, important ways in which we can bridge this gender gap is to have more women in positions of power through politics. I think the day we have half of our politicians and half of our elected representatives and at every level, local level, the state level, the national level, as women, I don't think there would be any gender gaps remaining after that day if we are able to achieve this organically, because that itself will be a testament to the fact that the society has been accepting of women in these positions of power. Those women have actually reached those positions of power, and then the kind of policies they will frame, the kind of decisions they will take, will all of us understand will have so much parity and then far-reaching consequences that then it's like just a minor blips here and there is what I understand. Hence, it is very, very important for women to come into politics, to come into positions of power, to fight elections, to just wherever they are, and not just in politics, wherever they are, to come to those positions of influence, to be able to shape policies, and I would say the path for the women who are still to walk that way, right? So that's one. But sadly, we do not have enough representation of women. In fact, across the world, not just in India. Even US hasn't elected a women president in its entire history, which is such a so strange. In India, we have it again at very poor levels. What we have tried to do in the last couple of years in various states is we have tried to reserve the seats for women, at least in the local bodies, in panchayats and urban local bodies. It has helped actually. So, for example, if you take the case of Bihar, in Bihar, 50% of the seats in local bodies are reserved for women, and that's I would say a revolutionary step, but still far from ideal, because what has happened is during this transition. The women who actually come into power are more of proxies for their male partners. So they aren't in themselves, let's say, women politicians, but they're their husbands or their fathers or somebody's politician in the family, and they just make them stand for the elections to hold on to that power. But I still think what has happened is now the same woman, if she keeps getting elected again and again, even as a proxy, what happens is seats start getting to shape, getting into that role, and slowly she will be a politician of her own. So I think it will take some time, but that's a very good step. I think 2029 is when we also have 1/3 of our seats in parliament and state legislatures being reserved for women. That again, I think is, again, I'm not saying that's an ideal point, but that's a good starting point, right? That would again help. So that's one. Literature, I think, The good thing about literature is I still find it to be very democratic. Anybody who has a pen can write. So I know more wonderful women writers than male writers, to be honest, right? For fiction, I would say most of the writers that have read are female rather than male authors. Uh, but it is also I would say, a duty, a responsibility of everybody who's writing, whether they are writing fiction, non-fiction, to be able to highlight or bring out the uh, true picture of things as they are on the ground. So, for example, the book that I've written on Bihar, right? It's about the sociopolitics of Bihar in the last couple of years, couple of decades. And it's one of the states where women have actually faced a lot of, so as to say, gender, gaps and regressive practices. In fact, one of the ways in which you measure how women, how progressive the society is for women, is to see the labor force participation rate, right? So, what percentage of the women uh, in the state or in the country are actually willing to participate in the working age or in the working group? And for Bihar, it is in single digits, right? So less than 10% of the women are actually participating in the labor force. So the one side of it is the fact that it augurs very bad for the economy, because you're essentially cutting off half of the population from working and essentially contributing the economy, GDP, and everything to the family's income and all of that. That's a larger macro effect. But the micro effect is, again, when you don't go out and work, you are not financially independent. When you're not financially independent, then you're so much dependent on the whims and fancies. As one of our esteemed panelists was saying, that even if you are facing our domestic violence, you just keep quiet because you do not have that basic independence to go out and just survive on your own, right? And hence you face the worst of atrocities. So I think it is important for the writers also to write, whether in fiction or non-fiction, to be able to bring out what women face, right? To be able to bring out in the starkest of ways, and to not try and level it and say, okay, let's try and just let's not go to that extreme, or to bring out the real picture. Let's try and balance the perspectives and so on. I think it is very important to just say, or call a spade a spade. So I think, as a politician, as a writer, in fact, I would also want to add, I know you didn't ask the question, but as an entrepreneur, so um, anybody who's leading a business, so for example, the organization that we run, it's called Biofy. It's a small organization, startup that we run. We have around 25 employees. You'll be pleased to know that 90% of our employees are females. And it is not because we wanted gender diversity, and we wanted to send a message to the outside world. So nobody knows us, to be honest. We are not a unicorn. Uh, it is just a common business sense for us. So, for example, the first few hires that we had, they were females. And the kind of sincerity and discipline, and all of these females came from middle class backgrounds. They wanted to prove something. It felt like they had just this opportunity to prove themselves. So they were so disciplined at their work and be ready to, give it their all. And the more we hired females, the more we saw that they're so much more sincere, disciplined, and they augur so much well for our business as well. And then we made a very conscious decision that, let's just hire women. It's making so much good sense for us. And it's also a good thing. So 90% of our, employees are females. And again, it's not a statement. Honestly, it's just very naturally how it occurred to us. So yeah, in every positions that we play in the society, any role, I would say, we always have a chance to be able to, influence some of these at the ground level.
Thank you. Good to know all that. Thank you so much. My next question goes to Satya. The fashion and beauty industry has long dictated how women should present themselves, including how they should speak. So have you ever had to push back against a narrative that sought to put women in a box and into a particular mold? Do tell us.
You've seen how I wear my hair. I have worn it the same way since I was 15. Before that, I wore 2 plaits. There was so much pressure on me from my own sister, forget about everybody else, to cut it. You're so old-fashioned. It's not the way to wear your hair, I said, no, I'll be who I am, right? So I think, yes, there is still a lot of pressure. And I've seen it in my own family because my sister is dark skinned. And there used to be so much of comments happening when we were growing up. How come you look like this and she looks like that? But she has a classic Tanjore sculpture face. I said, look at the face, forget the skin. I'm all wonky, but she's perfect. But nobody saw that. They only saw the skin color. And she had to work at it for a long, long time through her teens to get over that, hang up that she was not good looking because she was not fair. So I think women are pushed into these little boxes. You can never be perfect. Either you're not tall enough or you're too tall. I know tall girls who stoop because they're too tall. I know short girls who feel terribly, they're below the bar of approval because they're short. There's you have curly hair and it's wrong. You have straight hair, it should be curly. It never works. And I think we resisted all this, at least in my writing, I have tried to resist all this to an extent and tried to say that looks are one thing. As long as you are confident and you know who you are and you stand your ground, it doesn't matter. You will look beautiful. And I think some of the most beautiful people come from, I've met them in trains selling nightgowns. I've met this woman called Aruna who rides a scooter. She rides an auto rickshaw in our colony. She was the first woman in Bhanduk in Bombay to take an auto rickshaw. And she said they kept trying to run her off the road. But she said, my sons are in college and I'm the only bread earner and I had to do something. So, I see beauty everywhere. And we only have to look beyond trying to put women in the box. I think that's changing. That's changing. When I go to class to teach, I see women are very proud of, girls are very proud of who they are, what they look like. Of course, they do dress stereotypically nowadays. But the fact is that they know that if they enhance what they have, the confidence comes in and they don't have to become part of a mold. They don't all have to look the same and fit into the box. I think that's important. That's important. But I want to add one more thing, which is not part of your question, because we're talking of inspiration. And I think women are very inspiring. And Mr. Mathur is gone, but I wanted to tell him about a very inspiring woman I met in Itanagar.
I'm very much here.
Oh, you are there.
I'm very much.
Okay. So Mr.
I just muted
Mathur,
myself.
wonderful commanding officer in charge in Itanagar police station. And she was extremely smart, extremely well spoken. And she was given the credit by the superintendent of police that since she took over, she cleaned up the police station. She removed all the nefarious activities that were happening there. And then that police station, I've written about it for a US magazine. I was so impressed, has become a child-friendly and woman-friendly place where women go, they're given protection, they're given a place to meet with lawyers, they're given counseling, their family can come and meet them, they're given a safe house to live in while everything is being sorted out. Children who are abused are helped. And they call school children from everywhere. And this woman handles all of it. So I see inspiration in women everywhere. I think women are coming out of all those years of suppression. And it's amazing how women, I've seen friends of mine or colleagues of mine who, sad to say, when they lose their husbands, suddenly flower. Suddenly flowered. It's like 1 year of, I'm dying, I'm dead, I can't live without him, I don't know how to think. And then they take over the business and they learn the business and they do it. I have a journalist friend who took over 4 factories of her father's because her brother's not interested, he's a writer. So she said, I learned on the job, I learned to talk to CAs, I learned to talk to the floor people. I learned, I closed 2 of the 4 factories because they were not good, and I'm running 2 of them. So doing a brilliant job. So I think women, given the chance, flower. And beauty comes when you flower. I think that's, and I think women are realizing this, if I've answered your question.
Thank you very much, Satya. Very interesting to know your perspectives. My next question would be to Lajodi. Social media has given everyone a microphone, but does it really amplify women's voices, or does it create new ways to silence them? How do we navigate that new reality?
Hi. Oh, you know, I have mixed feelings about social media anyway. Okay, and if you see, my posts have become shorter and more distant than they used to be. But we're living in a changing world, and I think even as we try to empower women, we need to empower our men folk. Their perceptions need to change. Their perceptions about women, about their mothers, their daughters, their sisters, they need to change. They need to see them as equals.
Humans.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay. No, that's, so my main goal has been to talk to those closest to me. I don't work with any institution, but if you can change the way the men in your house look at you and look at their female folk, then you've achieved something, because it'll carry forward. It will carry forward somehow, one way or the other. And I'm very happy to say that Mr. Gupta, my better half, has turned out to be such a gem. So also my sons-in-laws and my nephews, my grandsons, they're being raised to love and respect their female counterparts. And that to me is what will trigger reactions. You see, it doesn't happen overnight. We can empower women all we want, but it has to also be, there has to be some focus on the other side, on changing the way we are seen by the men folk. I used to work with in a school, and there was a fashion designer there who wanted all his little students, downstairs, to be so skinny that they became clothes hangers. You know, okay. And I used to tell him that's just the wrong way to look at women. They will change over time when when they have babies, they will change, they will flower, they will blossom. Let them have that space, that sacred space where they can bloom and blossom and bring more talent to to your stage. And he would get very angry with me. So I walked away from there. Kaliwali,
That's you. That's you completely.
But on the other hand, the girls heard me. And they put their foot down and said, no, we're not going to be clothes hangers. We like to eat our chicken. We like to eat our rice. And we're not going to drop doing that because you want us to be certain. Recently, a lovely young girl, she created a video, very sweet, and I have to write about her at some point. But a lot of women folk declared she was too fat for screen.
Oh.
Yeah, and this girl is dynamic. I mean, she's wow. And she actually has that rounded Grecian figure that I like to look at. Okay. But the way people see people is, that perception. We need a 2020 vision correction insofar as even women look at other women.
Absolutely.
So that's where my focus is at right now. And I hope to bring out my book, which might tell stories.
Oh, amazing, Lajati. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Indra, my question to you next is that music is a universal language, but it still carries cultural weight. Have you experienced ever a moment where your raga, what you played, your art became an act of defiance, breaking barriers of gender or tradition?
Yes, unique in our field, instrumental Indian classical field of music, there's a large discrepancy in the gender distribution. You don't see as many female instrumentalists in this particular field, and so being able to make that more of a safe space for women, for example, touring artists, being on the road, it's actually a dangerous thing, as historically everyone knows, traveling all the time. So you see more male artists as touring artists, and we try to make a more safe space for women to be able to do that as well. And I think the internet has really been a boon in this particular aspect, because the audience gets to see female artists in a much wider way, and that creates that visibility for female artists. So to get back to your question, through music, have I ever experienced this epiphany that goes beyond gender? Yes, when we're able to have artists from all genders on the stage without this kind of barrier holding everyone back, that we're able to create safe spaces for people of all genders to express this music freely. That's when we truly transcend the barriers that society puts on us. And raga music is such a music that can do that, where you can really go beyond even ethnicity, you can go beyond gender, and you can go beyond age. So these are all aspects we can transcend through raga music.
Thank you very much, Indra. My question next is to Lisbeth. Lisbeth, NGO work is all about impact, but often systematic change is rather slow. Have you ever had to raise your voice in a way that was unpopular, even uncomfortable, to create real change that you have created?
Yeah, I think I've done that a lot of time in India, because, coming from a country or culture where we are much more direct. So I remember in the beginning when I was here, my team would say, in India, we're walking around the soup, but you're jumping in the soup, So definitely I have had to raise my voice many times. And also, also these cultures. Like, I remember one time I went to a program where our children from our homes were performing. They were performing dancing. And then after I went and I sat on the grass with them. And then my director said, we have to go. And I said, why? He said, no, it's not good that you are being seen with the children, because you must be seen as a busy woman. And I said, don't you ever say that to me again. I don't need to be received by anyone. I want to do exactly what I will do. And if I want to sit on the grass and people will judge me for that, they can do it. I don't care. Yeah. So I think there has been a lot of times also in regards to the way we are with women, the way we are with the children, where I come from a background where we are a lot more focusing on them having a voice, like when I started working in India, I found the way they were disciplining the children so hard. And I said, no, there's no need. Let's have a talk about it. So I feel the women, the children, families who are in our projects, they are able to raise their voice, to share about their opinions much more than in other projects. And I think that's because we have kind of put two cultures together. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, Lisbeth. I think I've covered all of you. Have I left anybody out? I hope not. We'll come to a close and a concluding question that is for all of you. That if you could change one gender bias, what would it be? We would start from Deepti.
One gender bias that I would want to change is perhaps.
There would be many, of course, but let's say one specific one. You have the power to change.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one because there's so many in my mind. So I'm just like, which one is most important? I think I very much there's something that every woman deals with as they're growing up is that they can fit into some roles and they do not fit into other roles in terms of work. And I feel like that's one gender bias that I would really want to change, is that women are seen equally at the workplace in any role.
Yes.
I think it's a very important gender bias because, it's very important for women to be financially independent. And that is something that hasn't been encouraged in society, in several communities. And unless they find their financial independence, I feel like they won't find the voice that they need. So yes, that's one bias that I would really want to change.
Thank you, Deepti. Satish, what would be that one gender bias that you would like to change if you had just one wish?
I think
we heard. Did you hear me? I wanted to get to Satish Mathur. What would be the muted gender bias?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So I would just like to change one bias, is that the women in the police force can't beat up the male criminals. So that's one thing which would really set people right, because if getting beaten up by, it's wrong to torture, but sometimes you do require a little nudge to behave, these roadside Romeos and all these kind of stuff. So that would really have a good impact.
Sorry, that's brilliant. Thank you.
Wonderful. I like that.
That's a really good one.
Yeah. Satya, what would be yours? What would be that one that you would like to change?
We've been talking on Women's Day about women, but I think even men suffer from biases.
Of course.
All the men who want to be dancers or who want to be painters, or even, I know someone who wanted to be a hairdresser and his father said, "Kya tum jaake nahi banega?" So I think that's the bias I want to remove.
The designer
like if you want to join a profession, it should not matter whether you're a man or a woman. Neither should your colleagues look at you as part of a gender. There should be no divide. It should be your work and you as a human being. I think that's the bias.
Thank you. Absolutely. Mrityunjay, what would you say here? What is that one vital gender bias that you would like to change?
So maybe just providing the male and female kids equal opportunities at the start of their lives. Something as basic as giving them the same food to eat, which is as much nutritious, sending them to the same schools that the boys are being sent to, letting them play as much as the boys play. Because later in life, even if we try and keep bridging these gender divides or gaps, if there has been a certain divergence at the start of their lives, it will be very difficult to bridge that later on. So I think the moment we are able to bridge that gap at the start of their lives itself, after one generation, the gap will vanish, because these people, when they will grow up, they'll never know of the divide itself. So yeah, that one.
Absolutely, because it's a nutritional and a psychological effect. So absolutely, yes. Thank you. Lajudi, what would you change?
I changed the way people look at each other, honestly, the way we see each other. There's such a stupid movement, pardon the French, towards being trend followers,
Yeah, absolutely.
Trend and brand and all that jazz. First, learn to be true to yourself. If you're true to yourself, if you know one reality, yours, your own, then you know all realities. And if you can be kind to yourself, then you can be kind to others. That is what my goal is. I suppose, through written work and whatever else that I do. That's the goal. Just, learn to perceive the other person with the same empathy that you would, give to a child or to an older person, the same respect. Okay. And if you have enough self-respect within yourself, you will automatically respect another person. But that comes, again, the key point is education. The gentleman before me, he talked about educating people and, right at the start of their life, giving them the same platforms, whether it's food or it's learning. And that, I think, yes, I grew up in Bombay, grew up with a bunch of boys. We went to the same school, we shared the same plates, we played together. And that made a difference in my life. I mean, I cannot, I cannot see disparity. We're the same. Boys can cry,
Exactly.
And boys must be allowed to cry and feel. Same thing with women. If they're crying, you don't call them a crybaby. No, they're feeling something. And I think people who cry easily are pure souls, So that's me.
Absolutely, Lajali. Thank you. And what a vital point. Indra, what would your take be on this? What is that one gender bias that if you could change, you would?
Well, just in general, that the opportunities afforded to women need to be merit-based, blind to gender, whether it's opportunity as an artist or the CEO of a company or the prime minister or president, just making sure that it's merit-based and no other considerations going into that.
Thank you very much, Indra. And as we come to a close, thank you all of you for your brilliant perspectives, for your time, for being part of She Inspires. And Gulnaz, are you there? I would love you to come and close this.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure, such a privilege to listen to all of you. And when I was listening to all of you, we could have an individual panel for each one of you, and it will still not do justice. So, but we've just had a taster and it's been brilliant. And I totally agree with everybody, what you have said about changes in perceptions. Of course, we have to give equal opportunities from the very onset, same food. It's so very basic, same opportunities, education and awareness. So yes, thank you. And I hope we can have you again soon, whenever you have the time, and we can have more in-depth discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.